Student A says visual checking means reading data to find errors, but student B says visual checking involves systematically comparing entered data against the original source document to identify transcription errors within the specified hospital database context. Boom! We're diving straight into an exam day scenario for Cambridge Information Technology, Syllabus 9626. In this explainer, we're going to decode exactly why one of these students gets the grade and the other completely tanks.
You see, while both students are tackling the exact same core concept, verifying data correctness, their approaches are quite literally worlds apart. One relies on a super basic, generalized flashcard definition. The other, well, they root their answer in a specific methodology tied directly to the hospital scenario given in the prompt. So place your bets right now. Which answer survives the examiner's red pen? When a prompt asks you to evaluate the use of visual checking for a new patient database, which response actually proves true analytical understanding? And hey, this matters. It really matters. Verification methods like visual checking and double data entry account for roughly 15% of the total marks in Paper 2. That is a massive grade boundary risk. I mean, that 15% can easily be the difference between an A and a B, or honestly, passing and failing. You absolutely cannot afford to lose marks here just because you misunderstood what the examiner is fundamentally asking for. This whole scenario perfectly highlights why ordinary revision fails and leads to some incredibly painful point losses. You know the drill. Most of us study by reading the textbook, highlighting definitions, and just hoping to regurgitate them onto the exam paper. But here's the thing. The Cambridge Assessment Framework prioritizes analytical depth over superficial breadth. It's so easy to fall into the trap of superficial breadth. You memorize the definitions, but totally fail to apply evidence-based reasoning. Rote learning completely ignores the context of the question. If the exam asks about a hospital database and you write a generic answer about verifying a password, you're going to lose points. Plus, rote learning completely skips over formatting and presentation conventions, which, by the way, are strictly graded in Paper 2. Okay, so here's the crucial point. You need a quick win to secure points even when panic sets in. Enter the method mark strategy. In 9626 information technology, you're often graded on your procedural framework just as much as your final answer. The method is your safety net. If you have a multi-stage analysis question, breaking it down systematically guarantees you pick up points along the way, even if your final conclusion isn't perfectly polished. Direct feedback from examiner reports makes this crystal clear. Showing your systematic processing steps is your absolute safety net. Let that sink in for a second. The examiners are literally handing you the playbook on how to pass by demonstrating logical, structured reasoning. They want to see you extract data, interpret relationships, and execute your analysis with very clear working. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to show you the ultimate examiner clue that changes an answer completely. It's a total game changer. But first, you really need the framework that makes that clue obvious, because without understanding the underlying architecture of a perfect response, the examiner's clue won't make any sense to you at all. All right, let's look at the structural blueprint that builds your answer logically. You start step 1 by deconstructing the exact command words. Then extract the relevant scenario data. Finally, select the proper analytical framework. You have to actively decide if this is a visual checking problem, double data entry, or maybe a combination of both. From there, you've got to execute your analysis with absolute clarity, showing every single comparison step. And crucially, you must present it with strict academic terminology. We really need to stop calling it looking for mistakes and start calling it identifying transcription errors. It makes a huge difference. To achieve that top-tier analytical depth, we apply the PELJ framework. Make your initial point, back it up with evidence from the case study, provide an explanation of how the method functions, link it back to the specific data problem, and finish strong with a justified judgment. The structure literally forces you to think exactly like an examiner. Applying this framework to our 2 core verification methods reveals a pretty stark contrast. For visual checking, you absolutely must note the manual comparison aspect and the severe limitation of human fatigue. For double data entry, you'd highlight the 2 independent typists, but weigh that against the limitation of double time and cost. Using this approach guarantees you're addressing both sides of the coin every time. But watch out, because the principal examiner reports reveal 3 catastrophic mistakes that trip up even the absolute best students. First up, using the wrong approach for the context. Recommending double data entry for a single, quick visual confirmation is overkill, and it's wrong. Second, forgetting to check your format and presentation. And third, giving generic, cookie-cutter answers that aren't specific to the case study. Examiners despise theoretical answers to practical questions. Let's escalate things a bit. I want you to imagine you are the examiner looking at a practical application of double data entry. Your job is to look at it through the lens of those top 3 traps, particularly focusing on the presentation of information and strict conventions. Are you ready? There is a fatal error in simply dumping raw data as a massive block of text, even if the numbers are technically correct. Now, compare that to utilizing proper headings, clearly identifying different typists, highlighting mismatches, and using the correct terminology to describe the verification failure. It's night and day, right? So, did you spot the missing strict conventions? If you didn't notice the lack of proper headings and formatting, you just lost your method marks. Presentation of information in Syllabus 9626 follows incredibly strict conventions. An examiner cannot give you full credit just because you found the right number. You have to prove you understand the systematic process. Proper headings and clear annotation aren't just nice to have. They are mandatory evidence of your working. And hey, this brings us right back to our open loop from earlier. The ultimate examiner clue is consistently evaluating the limitations within the specific context. This is the exact secret sauce that separates passing grades from top band gold. The examiner isn't just looking for you to tell them how a method works. They are practically begging you to tell them why it might fail in this specific scenario. Identifying those limitations and assumptions is the true hallmark of critical analysis. That is exactly why Student B from our opening duel takes all the marks. They applied context and evaluated the limitations. They didn't just casually say, visual checking finds errors. No. They used the strict terminology, systematically comparing, original source document, transcription errors, and they tied it directly to the hospital database context. They demonstrated knowledge, application, and the groundwork for analysis all in one powerful sentence. Student B completely understood that problem-solving uses the deconstruct, solve, and evaluate method perfectly. Student A gets 0 marks because there is no context and no method shown whatsoever. Student B gets full marks because they contextualize their answer and use strict conventions. This right here is the fundamental difference between rote learning and definition and truly mastering the cognitive domains required by Cambridge. So, there is really only one thing standing between you and mastering this syllabus entirely. You now understand the difference between a superficial answer and an analytically deep one. You have the PELJ framework in your back pocket. You know the vital importance of method marks and formatting conventions, and you've seen exactly what the principal examiner reports are practically screaming at you to do. But wait, what happens when you face the hardest, most unpredictable examiner traps on exam day? You now have the high mark strategy, which is fantastic. But this creates an entirely new problem. How do you avoid the hidden traps detailed in the latest examiner reports? Having the perfect framework is only half the battle. If you step into that exam room without anticipating the specific, unpredictable pitfalls that catch out thousands of students every single year, even the best strategy will collapse. Clicking into our next explainer on examiner report mistakes is an absolute mandatory step to ensure you don't fall for the hidden traps that ruin perfectly good exam strategies. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ace the Exams, at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. And I'll see you in the next masterclass.